Now we can turn our sketch folder off. So we'll just go ahead and turn that off. And now we're left with a really clean, crisp shapes and image. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start adding color to our character. This is where it's going to get really fun. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a new layer for our colors, and then we need to turn those layers into clipping masks. I'll show you what this means later, but for now, just follow along. So first what we'll do is we'll start with the top layer, which is the goggles. We're going to come down and add a new layer. Next, we're going to come up to the layer tab up here, and we're going to come down to create clipping mask. So select that, and now that layer you'll see has become a clipping layer mask for the goggles. Next, what we want to do is we want to select both these layers, the goggles and its clipping layer mask, and we're going to put those into a folder. Let's name that folder Goggles. So now we need to do that with every single layer here. We need to add a new layer above it, turn it into a clipping layer mask, and then put those into a folder and label them. So let's do the hair now. Add a new layer, come up to layer, come down to create clipping mask, select both those layers and put them into a folder. Then we'll label this hair. So go ahead and do that with all of these layers all the way down until you get to the sketch folder, and then you can stop. Alright, so now you should have all of your folders created and all of their clipping masks. Once you've done that, let's go ahead and open all of our folders. So we'll do that just by hitting this arrow on each one. Next, we're going to select all of our clipping masks. The way we're going to do that is by clicking on the layer mask layer and then holding down Control and selecting the next one. Now if you're on a Mac, you're going to hold down Command, and we're just going to continue doing this. So hold down Control and click. And now we're just going to go through and select all of our layer masks. Great. Now that those are all selected, what we want to do is we want to change their layer type. So right now, their layer type is normal. We want to change that to color. So we'll go ahead and select color, and now all of those layers have been changed to color. Now that these are color layers, what we can do is we can paint on top of our image, and the values that we've already painted will still come through the color. So I'll show you what I mean. So if we select our brush tool and select our hair clipping mask, we can then paint in this shape. Now since it's a clipping mask, that means that it's creating a mask of this shape right here, his hair. So when we paint, it's only going to paint within the hair shape. Let me show you. So as you can see, it didn't paint anywhere else except within the hair shape. And since it's on a color layer, that means that the color is only going to show through with the value underneath it. Now for this particular character's hair, I think I want the top of his hair to be orange and the bottom to be yellow. So I'm going to change the color to a yellow, and I'm going to paint in the bottom, making sure that I'm using a soft edged brush. Now that's looking a little bit too saturated for me, so I'm going to go back and change my color. And now I'm going to repaint that. That's looking better to me. Alright, now let's move on to the face. So we'll go to the head clipping mask, and we're going to select a new color. We want a skin tone to be more in the orange range. Hit OK, and now we can paint that in. Next, let's do the scarf. So we'll go to the scarf clipping mask, And for the scarf, I think I want something more red. Hit OK. I think something like that might be a good color. Next, let's do his shirt. So we'll come to the shirt clipping mask. And I just want to try using the same color as the scarf and see how it looks. Now, that's a little too saturated for me and a bit too bright. So I'm going to bring it over more towards the gray side and a little bit down. Now let's try that. I think that looks better. Alright, now let's do his gloves. So his gloves, I want to introduce a cool color. Now if you don't know the difference between warm and cool colors, I'll show you. So cool colors would be greens, aquas, and blues, and purples. Warmer colors would be reds, oranges, and yellows, and sometimes violets. So right now, we only have warm colors working in our image, which is fine. But I think I want to introduce some cool colors just to make it a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to select an aqua color. Hit OK. Then I'm going to fill in his gloves. Now that's a bit too saturated for me, so I'm going to bring down the saturation by getting closer to the gray side. We'll hit OK. Now let's try that. Alright, that's working better for me. Next, let's add some color to his pants. So we're going to come down to the pants folder and select its clipping mask. Now I want his pants to be a very similar color to his gloves, so we're going to go to the color picker, and the only difference I really want is I want it to be a little bit more blue. So we're going to move up more towards the blue side. We'll hit OK and fill that in. Next, let's do our boots. So our boots are going to be very similar to a shirt. So I'm going to select the shirt color, and then I'm going to fill my boots in with that color. Now lastly, we need to do his sword. So we're going to go up to the sword folders, and we'll start with the blade. So I want the blade to be a blue color. So I'm going to come to my blues, and let's start off with something in this area. Hit OK, and let's fill that in. I like that color, it's just a little bit too saturated, so I'm going to bring the saturation over. Hit OK. Now let's try filling that in. Great, I think that looks better. Now let's do his handle. For his handle, I think I want a brown color. So we'll select the clipping mask for the handle. Then we're going to fill that in with a brown color. I think that looks good. Alright, now we have all the base colors on our character. This is really cool. It's really starting to come together, and I hope you guys are starting to get excited about creating your character.